Quick disclaimer, this is an AI voice, which is not going to be perfect. There is a transcript in the description as well as subtitles for you to read along with. Parliament is the supreme legislative body of the United Kingdom, responsible for making and scrutinising laws, representing the public and holding the government to account. Parliament is structured as a bicameral system, meaning it has two separate chambers, the elected House of Commons and the appointed House of Lords, where both work together in the lawmaking process. The House of Commons consists of the government, formed by the political party with the most seats, the official opposition, which is the party with the second highest number of seats, frontbenchers, who are ministers or shadow ministers, backbenchers, who are MPs without ministerial positions, and the Speaker, who presides over debates and maintains order. The role of the House of Commons is to propose, debate, and pass legislation, scrutinise the actions of the government, represent constituents, and approve government spending. An example of the House of Commons failing to fulfil its role was the lack of effective scrutiny over the awarding of COVID-19 contracts, where concerns were raised about transparency and accountability. The House of Lords consists of life peers, hereditary peers, and bishops, where life peers are appointed based on merit. Hereditary peers inherit their titles, and bishops represent the Church of England. The role of the House of Lords is to scrutinise legislation, amend bills, provide expertise, and hold the government to account. An example of the House of Lords failing to fulfil its role was the approval of the illegal migration bill in 2023, despite concerns over human rights implications. Members of the House of Commons are selected through general elections, where voters elect MPs to represent constituencies under a first-past-the-post system. The leader of the government is the Prime Minister, chosen by the governing party, while the leader of the opposition is the head of the second-largest party, elected by its members. The Speaker of the House of Commons is elected by MPs through a secret ballot and is expected to remain impartial. Peers in the House of Lords are appointed members consisting of life peers, hereditary peers, and bishops. Life peers are appointed by the Prime Minister and approved by the monarch. Hereditary peers inherit their titles, and a limited number are elected among themselves, and bishops are senior members of the Church of England. The functions of the House of Commons include legislating, scrutinising the government, representing constituents, and approving financial measures. An example of legislating being fulfilled was the passage of the Online Safety Act in 2023 to regulate online content. An example of scrutiny being fulfilled was the Partygate inquiry in 2022, holding the government accountable for breaking COVID-19 regulations. An example of representation being fulfilled was MPs advocating for increased energy bill support in 2022 following public pressure. An example of financial approval not being fulfilled was the 2022 mini-budget by Liz Truss's government, which led to economic instability. The functions of the House of Commons are generally fulfilled to a greater extent due to its democratic legitimacy and direct accountability to the electorate. However, the functions of the House of Commons are sometimes limited by government majorities, rushed legislation, and lack of transparency in decision-making. The functions of the House of Lords include revising legislation, delaying bills for further scrutiny, providing expertise, and checking government power. An example of revising legislation being fulfilled was the House of Lords amending the Police, Crime, Sentencing and Courts Bill in 2022 to protect protest rights. An example of delaying bills being fulfilled was the Lords delaying the Brexit Withdrawal Agreement Bill in 2019 to allow further scrutiny. An example of providing expertise being fulfilled was Lords contributing to detailed amendments to the Environment Act 2021 to strengthen environmental protections. An example of checking government power being fulfilled was the Lords rejecting parts of the Elections Act 2022 that restricted voter ID requirements. The functions of the House of Lords are fulfilled to a greater extent when it effectively revises and improves legislation through expertise and amendments. However, the functions of the House of Lords are sometimes limited by its lack of democratic legitimacy, its inability to permanently block legislation, and government dominance in the legislative process. The UK Parliament has many powers split between the House of Commons and the House of Lords, with many debates over the effect of these powers on the UK and democracy. The exclusive powers of the House of Commons include the authority to grant money to the government through approving bills that raise taxes, the right to impose taxes and to vote money to or withhold it from public departments and services, and the ability to remove government members. In 2023, the House of Commons exercised its exclusive power over taxation by passing the Finance Bill, which outlined the government's budget and tax changes for the fiscal year. In 2022, the House of Commons demonstrated its authority over public expenditure by approving the allocation of funds for the NHS and other public services through the Appropriation Bill. In 2019, the House of Commons exercised its power to remove government members by passing a motion of no confidence against Prime Minister Theresa May's government, leading to her resignation. The main powers of the House of Lords include scrutinising and amending legislation passed by the House of Commons, holding the government to account through debates and questions, and delaying legislation for up to 1 year. In 2022, the House of Lords exercised its power of legislative scrutiny by considering 5,244 changes to 100 bills, raising concerns and pressing the government for action on various issues. In 2023, the House of Lords held the government to account by conducting debates and daily oral questions on topics such as ambulance delays, social care vacancies, and the cost of living. In 2024, the House of Lords exercised its power to delay legislation by postponing the passage of a controversial bill for further consideration, effectively delaying its enactment by up to 1 year. The relative power of the House of Commons and the House of Lords positively influences the UK and its democracy by ensuring thorough legislative scrutiny, as demonstrated in 2015 when the Lords voted down proposed tax credit cuts, prompting the government to reconsider its approach. This balance allows for the representation of diverse expertise evident in the Lords' detailed examination of the European Union Withdrawal Act 2018, where they suggested numerous amendments to address potential issues. Additionally, the Lords' ability to delay legislation provides a check on hasty governmental actions, as seen in their scrutiny of the United Kingdom Internal Market Act 2020, raising concerns about its impact on devolution. However, the relative power of the House of Commons and the House of Lords can negatively impact the UK and its democracy by creating potential conflicts of interest, highlighted by a 2025 investigation revealing that over 90 peers received payments from commercial companies for political advice, undermining public trust. Its power dynamic can also lead to legislative gridlock, exemplified by the 2019 prorogation controversy, where the suspension of Parliament hindered legislative progress and sparked constitutional debates. Furthermore, the unelected nature of the House of Lords raises questions about democratic legitimacy, as their influence over legislation can contradict the elected mandate of the House of Commons, leading to tensions between democratic accountability and appointed oversight. The legislative process in the United Kingdom is a structured sequence through which proposed laws, known as bills, are scrutinised, debated, and either enacted or rejected by Parliament. The legislative process consists of the Green Paper, White Paper, first reading, second reading, committee stage, report stage, third reading, House of Lords stages, consultation stage, and royal assent. The Green Paper is an initial consultation document published by the government to outline potential policy changes and invite feedback. The White Paper is a more detailed proposal following the Green Paper that sets out the government's intentions and forms the basis of bill. The first reading is a formal stage where the bill is introduced to Parliament without debate, allowing MPs or Lords to review its contents. The second reading is the first opportunity for MPs or Lords to debate the general principles of the bill before voting on whether it should proceed. The committee stage is where a group of MPs or Lords examines the bill in detail, suggesting amendments and scrutinising its provisions. The report stage allows further consideration and amendments to the bill, particularly those suggested during the committee stage. The third reading is the final opportunity for MPs or Lords to debate the bill before it moves to the next stage, focusing on its overall content rather than specific amendments. The House of Lords stage repeats the process from first reading to third reading, allowing further scrutiny and possible amendments. The consultation stage, known as parliamentary ping-pong, occurs if the Commons and Lords disagree on amendments, requiring negotiation until an agreement is reached. The royal assent is the final stage where the monarch formally approves the bill, making it an official law. An example of a bill that had difficulty during the legislative process was the Illegal Migration Bill 2023, which faced significant opposition in the House of Lords due to concerns over human rights implications, leading to multiple amendments and delays. The House of Commons and the House of Lords interact during the legislative process by reviewing and amending bills, with the Salisbury Convention playing a role in this. The Salisbury Convention is a constitutional convention that ensures the House of Lords does not block government bills that implement manifesto commitments. For example, during the Labour government of 1945-1951, the Lords allowed the passage of nationalisation bills outlined in the Labour Party's manifesto. Parliament interacts with the executive by scrutinising government decisions, approving legislation, questioning ministers, and holding the Prime Minister and the government to account. The role of backbenchers in the House of Commons is to scrutinise the government, contribute to debates, propose private members' bills, and represent their constituents. Backbenchers in the House of Commons are significant because they can influence legislation, hold the government to account, and raise important issues, but they are not significant when party discipline and government majorities limit their influence. An example of backbenchers in the House of Commons fulfilling their role and being significant is when Conservative MPs forced Boris Johnson to abandon parts of the Internal Market Bill in 2020 due to concerns about breaching international law. The role of backbenchers in the House of Lords is to scrutinise legislation, contribute to debates, and suggest amendments to bills without the constraint of constituency responsibilities. Backbenchers in the House of Lords are significant because they can use their expertise to influence legislation and delay government bills for further scrutiny, but they are not significant when the elected House of Commons ultimately has the final say. An example of backbenchers in the House of Lords fulfilling their role and being significant is when they successfully forced the government to make concessions on the Nationality and Borders Bill in 2022 by rejecting controversial clauses. Parliamentary privilege is the legal immunity that allows MPs and Lords to speak freely in debates without fear of legal action. Parliamentary privilege is important to backbenchers in the House of Commons and the House of Lords because it enables them to raise sensitive issues, expose misconduct, and hold the government to account without legal repercussions. Select committees investigate government policies, scrutinise public spending, and hold ministers to account through reports and questioning. An example of a select committee and what they have done is the Home Affairs Select Committee's 2023 inquiry into the asylum backlog, which led to increased government transparency on processing delays. The opposition is the largest political party in Parliament that is not in government. The role of the opposition is to challenge government policies, propose alternatives, scrutinise decisions, and hold the government to account. The opposition is significant because it provides an alternative to the government and influences policy debates, but it is not significant when the government has a strong majority and can easily pass legislation. An example of the opposition fulfilling their role is when Labour pressured the Conservative government to introduce a windfall tax on energy companies in 2022 to address the cost of living crisis. Ministerial question time is a regular session where government ministers answer questions from MPs and peers about their policies and decisions. The purpose of ministerial question time is to hold ministers accountable for their actions and ensure transparency in government decision-making. The nature of ministerial question time is that it involves direct questioning, often with critical or adversarial exchanges, and is an opportunity for MPs to raise constituency concerns. A significant example of ministerial question time is when the Foreign Secretary was questioned in 2021 about the UK's withdrawal from Afghanistan, leading to intense scrutiny of government decisions. Prime Minister's questions is weekly session where MPs question the Prime Minister on government policies and current issues. The purpose of Prime Minister's questions is to hold the Prime Minister accountable, allow scrutiny of government decisions, and provide platform for political debate. The nature of Prime Minister's questions is highly adversarial, with the opposition leader and MPs challenging the Prime Minister in fast-paced and often confrontational manner. A significant example of Prime Minister's questions is when Keir Starmer challenged Boris Johnson in 2021 over alleged lockdown parties in Downing Street, leading to increased public pressure and political controversy. Thank you for watching this video on the UK Parliament. I'll see you in the next lesson.